For quite a while I've enjoyed media breaking art. The first example I saw was this painting by Andrew Scott, where the frame itself is being broken by the man in the painting, and an example where the frame's been burned by the Molotov cocktail that he's holding. The first example I saw that in a Warhammer context was Rogue Hobbies doing this diorama where the model itself is coming alive on one side of the board and in universe scale, and then on the other the hobby desk as the model was being built. And another idea that was floating around while I was thinking about this was when people paint models on the sprue, which is quite cool, and I've seen people doing this and then framing it. So this kind of inspired me to do my own, and I started off by looking at what kits I could do this with, and some of the ideas I had were so for wizards, using magic to bring themselves back to life off the sprue, or maybe a space marine kind of ripping himself off the sprue to go fight someone. But while I was looking, I saw the Stormcast Eternals starter set and some paint pots. I realised this would be perfect because the model's quite simple. It's their bush fit, which makes the posing work better, I think. And the paint pots I could incorporate as well, with some magic with the paint coming onto the sprue or something like that. And thirdly, the actual lore behind Stormcast Eternals, where they are reforged with the lightning, which I realised I could do the lightning like Elminiaturista, and I think it's a pretty good example. And that could also be part of some of the structural pieces that keep the parts of the model off the sprue as they're raising up and being, well, reforged with magic. So I then originally had a look at the sprue online to figure out how I could do it, and then when I bought it I made plans terribly in Microsoft Paint. So firstly just having some pictures of the models to how it could work with the different parts kind of attached through lightning. And then once I had the sprue, I started doing more in-depth planning, again in Microsoft Paint, where I've worked out which parts for each model off the instructions and colour coded them to then see how I can have them coming off the sprue in a composition that I actually like and works, making sense off the sprue. So this was the original plan. This is from the front, and this is a bit below is from the side. I did end up changing a little bit once I started to actually do the modelling, but it was very helpful to kind of figure out, because you don't want to cut something off the sprue when it was meant to stay on the sprue. And then just some doodle about what I might do with the paint. So the first thing I did was actually practice with the lightning and how I wanted to do that in terms of bending it and the painting, because even though lightning isn't actually blue, it kind of feels like it should be. And in these examples you can see this is using the blue and then the OSL blue. It looks really good, but he's not done blue on it at all. I think he has in some of his other examples, but in this one he's used pure white. So I was testing with this to see what which I'd like to do. So then, and I was also doing with this wire be able to hold up the pieces structurally, would it be strong enough? So I started posing using some cocktail sticks and blue tack to figure out where I wanted the models, and then starting to do some of the actual lightning effects and reposing slightly with some green stuff. And this again, just checking that how I could actually support the models properly. And then here's the kind of, this pretty much ended up being the diorama in the end, although these are just kind of still dry fit, not glued them in. The gluing was quite difficult, it was quite small, but I did end up using a super glue activator, which is quite effective, and definitely made my life a lot easier when trying to do this. So then, kind of trying to figure out how it looks in the tray that the paint pots come with, because I think it works better. I think it tells a better story of the hobby desk coming alive when you've got it on the tray that comes in the box and the paint pots next to it. So we have a close-up of the model. You see here I've glued on a separate piece to try and get the forking and lightning. It's not perfect because you can tell when it's painted there is some glue there. So maybe, I'm not sure how to actually improve on that, to be honest. Maybe something to look at in the future, maybe just a thinner super glue maybe. So then some of it was obviously still on the sprue, all connected. So here's how I primed it, using a piece of paper with some slits cut in it and then tape to try and mask the sprue. When it came to painting, I painted it quite dark, a mix of gold and red to kind of get it that bronzy colour in the recesses, and then I dry brushed lighter and lighter golds on. I liked the colour in the end. I think he's not got very good control, and I used a wash as well, and I think that doesn't lend itself very well for very accurate painting, but I'm still learning and trying to get better at painting, so I'm glad I tried it, and I did quite like the end results, even if they're not particularly clean. So it is still a work in progress here, with both some paint on the model. And a bit further on here, so you can see I think everything's at least based here. And here's my favourite part of the model, what I've done is the paint kind of is still in motion and coming down onto the sprue as the shield is magically being reattached to this Stormcast. So I wanted to include the paint as part of the magical effect, which meant firstly I had to tip out the blue paint, and I bought some of the drop bottles to transfer the paint across because I didn't want to waste it. Although I did waste the white because I've already got two different other white paints, and I know the Corax white paint can get a bit chalky, so I didn't bother trying to save that. So I super glued some wire in the bottom of the pot. It's all twisted up to try and give it a bit more support. And I used Das clay to model the paint. I think if I was to do it again, I could get it much smoother. I kind of rushed it a little bit and didn't do a very good job of wrapping the armature, because you can see it's poking through a bit here. The second one I did a much better job, but it's still not perfect. But I struggled quite a lot with trying to bend it without kind of pulling it off the armature, especially because it's attached quite precariously to the bottom of these pots as well, and I don't want to put too much force through it. So that's the final modelling in the model. There's a little bit of painting, I think, to do these, and painting the clay as well. So here's the final diorama that I did. So you can see there's a little bit of the clay texture as well, so it's not quite perfect. I don't know if that's just choosing the wrong clay, or if it is possible to smooth it out more. I'm not really sure. I got a gloss varnish on the blue to make it kind of still look wet, which I think looks quite good. I quite like that. I like the composition of the Stormcast, where the lightning almost looks like wings as well. I I think a lack of attention to detail in some parts has let it down a bit, and it's not delivered on the idea I had quite, not perfectly, but I wasn't expecting that because I've not done a diorama before, and I'm just glad to have actually got it done, rather than just having an idea and leaving it. So when I was saying about the attention to detail, you can immediately see the holes where these have been drilled in, and there's some glue there. Maybe you could have cut that, made it a bit smoother. Some of the bits where it's attached, you can see the super glue frosting, and then just some of the bits of the paint job as well, where it's less clear here because the photo quality is so poor, but the wash is kind of patchy in bits. So yeah, there's definitely bits of improvement I could have done, and some of it just from taking more time rather than rushing through it. Need some better pictures of the painting, and I think the lightning, maybe too much blue in it as well. It could be, I think, sharper corners would make the lightning look more realistic, maybe a thinner gauge, but I didn't want to go too thin because it was supporting the weight of the models as well, and I wanted a uniform thickness. But I'm happy with it, and it's probably one of the more interesting things I've painted and done, so definitely gonna leave it out as a display piece